Okay, we're back for part four. 4 parts. This is crazy. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I've been. I hope that you've been following along with the whole thing. I don't know what these come across as if you just jump into the middle of them. Sometimes I don't normally even go through all my videos to see like views and stuff like that. I don't see unless people comment on them, but sometimes I notice that like as I'm uploading, I'll see that the first video in a series won't have been watched, but the second one will have been watched like multiple times, which I think is, I don't know how that comes across to y'all. Like, I don't know how cohesive it tends to be to begin with, I guess. But whatever works for you, I suppose. Hopefully this has been wonderful for me. This has been great. So I hope the same for you. Because I don't do this just to be masturbatory. I do this because I feel led to, and then I put them out and find that random people from across the world happen upon them and it helps them. And that is more than enough for me. That's more than enough for me. That's wonderful. So without further ado, okay. The tides are changing. The tides are changing. Things are happening. The tables are turning. Nothing will ever be the same, but it's already been that way. Destiny is approaching. Okay. So we left off with the Star card in the reverse. These two cards are face down. So the next card is the World in the reverse. Right. So we're still in this energy. Okay, I know that things are shifting. I know that they are. I can see that in my mind's eye. But there's still work that has to be done. There's still things that have to be done until this tide has shifted. The apocalypse. Ah, that's so pleasant. That's so pleasant to think about. Okay, so where we find our main character right now is that they are embracing their destiny. They are David having fought Goliath and won. And now they are being rewarded for those things. They are Medusa getting her justice. They are finding that they have a place in this world, and that it's significant. And they are putting that to work. But that's the work that still needs to be done, right? That's the work that's being done as we speak. And what's happening with that is not just now. We already have this, we have the witch and the king. Okay, wait. We had the witch and the king. Had the witch and the king, but the witch has been defeated, and right now we're rebuilding the kingdom. The king was killed, unfortunately. The arrogant, pompous king, who was a good king. He was a good king, but he was very shallow, and he was very ignorant to the needs of his people. He had the kingdom set the way that it was, it was booming in his care, right? Or at least it appeared to be. It was much like the Roman Empire back at its peak, right? But we all kind of at least know what happened, right? To a degree, it collapsed. It collapsed. It reached its peak and then absolutely degraded into itself, much like this king's kingdom did. And that was because he was doing what he believed to be best based on archaic concepts that no longer applied the same way. He was in the Lord of Valor energy, right? Like we had at the beginning. But by this Lord of Valor, this is the Seven of Wands, and it's in the upright. And this was the energy that he was in. And it's in the upright. So everything was balanced and everything was good and everything seemed to be kosher as far as that was concerned. But he had no foresight. He didn't have true intuition. He wasn't aware what his predecessor, the queen, was doing right underneath him. That she was trying to take his throne and that she was cursing the entire kingdom. He wasn't aware that the timelines had shifted. He wasn't aware that the times were changing. He was doing things the way that he believed was supposed to be done, which is all fair in love and war. But what he didn't realize was that during this intermission, when things got split and then turned on their heads, and then when this process of ego death had happened for our main character to the point of establishing the destiny beyond the curse still needed to be defeated. This didn't happen during the intermission. But what did happen was that we reached the Seven of Wands in the reverse. We reached our white rabbit, and it was in the reverse. So although it took a minute to come to an understanding because these things were hidden, as soon as we moved through it, those things were hidden beyond our concept of, it's kind of like, so we slayed our ego, right? We got over our ego. We became these high spiritual beings to the point of becoming arrogant, much like the king, right? Now we're so righteous. Oh, we're so righteous. We're so much better than everybody else because we're not involved in these things and we don't do this and that. And that was an illusion. That was part of the illusion. The illusion was this concept. The illusion was that the curse ever had any power. The fact that the time-space continuum had split and we were living in two different dimensions at the same time was the illusion. That wasn't the case. What was actually the case is that there was a secret third dimension. There was a secret third reality that was happening where those things only held power as long as we gave them power, right? It's like this little boy's reading the book. Bastian's reading the book. Sebastian, right? I think is his main name, is the kid's name in The Neverending Story. Because it's, what is Atticus? What is the main character's name? I don't remember, but so Sebastian's reading the story, and as he's reading it, and he, especially once he realizes that the story is about him, he becomes terrified of the story, right? At first, because he's like, oh, this flips reality on its head. And as soon as he feels like reality's flipped on its head, he feels incredibly disempowered. That's because he had slayed his ego and had yet to resurrect it into something beneficial. It's a multi-step process, right? It's not just about killing the bad guy. It's not just about getting rid of the curse. It's about reestablishing things in a way that's actually beneficial. My mom had taught me when I was a kid, which I appreciate the fuck out of because I've been using it my entire life. I wish that she would apply these things because she taught me so much that she just never applied. But she had taught me that in order to quit something truly, like an addiction, you have to view it like there's a demon. And she said that the way that the Bible puts it is that if you cast a demon out of your house and don't fill that space with good things, if you just leave the space absolutely empty, let's say you clean it out completely, you got rid of all the bad stuff, but if you don't fill it with good stuff, then that demon comes back with friends, with 7 more demons, and completely fills the space to make it that much harder for you to kick it out this time. So it's important when giving up something bad to fill it with something good, to fill that void with something good. And it's true. That's part of this balance. Not to be in one's ego to define what is good and evil. In fact, in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of the Bible, that's the carnal sin that we are given to, is this eating of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. to partake in the consequences of our conception of there being a separation between what is good and what is evil, to give power to evil at all. Because without it, all things were good. All things were created, and in God, all things were created good. Underneath the Creator, the vast Creator, Elohim, the multi-God, the creative source energy that created all things. Not Yahweh, not this specific man God that was given to all of these different senses of division, but the Creator God, when life was created, when all things were created, before the concept of God was even created, right? Everything was good. Everything was good. It was only when we chose to conceive of evil that evil manifested. That's how powerful we are. And so to remove ourselves from all of those things, I mean, it wasn't enough just to not eat of the fruit of the tree. We had to actively participate in Eden in order to not be given to those types of things. You have to fill the void with something positive, right? And so that's where we're at when it comes to this world card in the reverse, because we're waiting, we're working. There's a process that's happening. It's actively happening to get us into this direction. But what is happening is Armageddon. Well, what's happening right now is the apocalypse, then Armageddon. So the curse has already been defeated, but all of these things still have to come to pass. So it doesn't, in this, there's still the illusion of two different dimensions happening. There's still the capacity that the individual has to conceive of themselves outside of themselves and to not fully recognize themselves within themselves. And because of that, apocalypse is necessary. Apocalypse, a great awakening. A great awakening. But simultaneously, as all things that are happening in this singularity at the same point of a great awakening is also a great shadowing. The people that are given to becoming awake are causing a stir in those that are not given to that. You know, it's kind of like when you're so tired and you're sleeping in the morning, right? And let's say it's super early in the morning and you still have like a couple hours left to sleep and you want to get that couple hours in, but somebody else in the house or in the room even has woken up already and is moving about and doing things and being productive. And like, even if they're being quiet about it, there's still this sense of like, you know that they're up, you know that they're doing something. And especially if it's something that you feel somewhat responsible for doing too, but you wanted to get those extra hours of sleep, there's this frustration of like, I still want to sleep. I don't want to get up. Those that have a sense of personal responsibility will still get up. They'll still get up, even though they're tired. They might be a little cranky. It might take a minute for them to fully wake up and actually get to work, right? But they'll still do it. Where some of those are like, fuck you. Either get out of this room and let me sleep, or we're going to have a problem, right? And they pull the blankets back over their head and they go back to sleep. So that's kind of the state of where we're at right now, right? We're like, and, you know, it's like this kid reading the story starts to see that the characters are acting this way. Now, he was just acting this way himself prior to becoming fully aware himself. He's not fully aware of that, though. Okay? Because he's killed off his ego. But he hasn't reinstated it yet. And so without it, he still doesn't see himself clearly. Your ego is an essential aspect of who you are. It's just important that you clear out the toxicity within it and that you don't have it overinflated in an unhealthy fashion and that you aren't using it in a way that it isn't necessary. But it is an essential aspect of your being. It's part of who you are. And because he doesn't see this, he sees all these characters acting this way, and he's getting frustrated. He's like, guys, wake up. Like, come on, I don't care that you're tired. It's not my fault you ended up staying up super late. You knew that there was work that needed to get done. People are like, no, I didn't. I wasn't even paying attention. And he's like, it's not my fault. Like, they're like, I was drunk already. He's like, that's not my responsibility, but the stuff still has to get done. And all the rest of us are awake doing this, so get up. And they're not trying to get up. And they're fighting him. And they're destroying each other in that, right? So like, he's like sitting here trying to get them up. Let's say it's like your boss calling, or like the sergeant calling while all of the soldiers are sleeping. And so there's a few soldiers getting up and doing what they're supposed to be doing because they're good soldiers. But these other dudes are like, I don't even give a fuck about being a soldier. I don't want to win this war. I don't even care. I just want to get sleep. And now they're arguing with each other. And now they're fighting with each other. And it's not helping anything. We're just bringing more home at this point, right? So these things need to happen because there is an awakening that's happening, but there's also this disgruntled conflict. And it's fear. It's fear coming to the surface in order to get rid of it. It's that feeling of your throat getting really hot and filled with saliva as your mouth starts to water because you just feel your stomach turning and you just know you're about to vomit. It's important, all of that, so that the acid in your stomach doesn't absolutely destroy your esophagus and your mouth as it comes up. But it's coming up. And it's coming out. And it needs to, because as it's been sitting in your belly, it's been making you sick. It's not doing you any good in there. It's like having poison in your system that you need to throw up. You need to throw up, but like, you don't want to because it's sickening, you know? But like, what's making you sick is the poison. You need to get it out of there. I used to have a phobia of throwing up. I didn't even like thinking of the word throw up. I certainly couldn't handle hearing the word vomit. I was extremely phobic of it. I forget what the word is, but I had the actual phobia of vomiting. It would trigger me like nobody's business. I would cry, I would scream, I would freak out. I didn't throw up for 11 years. I would rather make myself sick to my stomach and be in the bathroom shitting myself than have thrown up. And even that was a bother to me too. All of it. I didn't like any of it, but I had an actual phobia of throwing up. I just didn't want things to come up and out that way. I can't even say exactly what it was in my head. It just bothered me. It just absolutely killed me. I hated it. I have no issue at all throwing up. If I start to feel a certain way, I'll go make myself throw up just to get that shit out. I don't like having certain feelings in my body anymore. But it took a long time for me to learn that and to get over that phobia. And like I said, my mom had taught me. I've been doing this my whole life. She taught me how to get rid of addictions, you know, and part of that is like, you have to get those things out, but then you also have to fill it with something better. I get the thing out of me that feels like shit, and then I drink water or I eat something. I do something that's healthy so that I can actually feel better. And I very much enjoy doing that. I don't like feeling sick. I don't like feeling controlled. I don't like feeling under the weather in any sort of degree, right? But, you know, I've had a lot of addictions. I was addicted to sucking my thumb, and I quit sucking my thumb when I was like 10. It took me a long time, but I was 10 when I quit sucking my thumb, and I remember being really proud of myself for that. And it was because I had applied what my mom had taught me, you know. At that point, I started drawing more. I was already drawing all the time, but I started drawing more at that point in time. You know, when I stopped actively trying to kill myself for a time, it was when I started having sex. So sometimes we don't replace things with the healthiest things, but it's still an alternative. And that's part of the healing process too. You know, for me, that's what it took. Because I was like cutting myself. And then I stopped cutting myself when I started having sex. And then I started going into a 12-step program for sex addiction. You know, so there was a step process in that to become healthy. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is the step process. People have to work through these different fears, these 4 beasts of the apocalypse. symbolize different fears, different concepts, different egos that need to first be presented and then abolished in order for us to move forward. Okay, so these are like the beasts that are being defeated in this sense. These monsters that are being defeated. They're all just in our head. They're all just metaphors for something deeper. It's like what I was talking about yesterday when it comes to demons. Generally, they're depicted as these chimeras, these abominations that are a mix of like, this guy's got duck feet and a, human head, but leopard body and like all this crazy shit, right? That's all just metaphorical for the energy behind those things, for the different things given power and the way that they've intermeshed in a toxic way. It's all these different types of toxicities that we are, that we're fighting and overcoming. Okay. Then we have the Emperor in reverse. Okay, so here is where our king dies. Here is where our king dies. Okay, so what actually happens? Like I said, so the queen that put the curse on him, right? The way that this curse works is it's an illusion. And so, like I said, like she makes it so that like all of these people just adore their king more than they ever would. And the, soldiers are stronger than they've ever been. And, he has more riches and nicer things than have ever existed in this kingdom. And that's all to create the illusion of comfort and convenience in order to rob him, essentially, of those things. Because while he was pompous and prideful, it was because he was taking great personal pride in those things that that all of those things were protected. But that she had to overinflate his ego and his perception of his kingdom and his reality in order to rob him of it, in order to take it from him. So she made it look like it was more than it was, so that when she was taking the lesser half, it didn't seem like she was really taking that much, right? Meanwhile, then as soon as the transaction has happened, dude turns around and realizes that it was all just a farce and that he didn't actually get anything out of it. Been there, done that. So that's the curse that's happening here. And much like, okay, so like I said, like this is like both Medusa and David. In the story of Medusa, where not the Medusa that gets her justice, but the original story, she's the one that gets her head cut off, right? She's the beast that gets her head cut off. That ends up being the queen of curses. But the queen of the thrones of air. That's what this card is called. So that's who it ends up being. But she doesn't see it that way, of course, because she's caught herself in her own illusion. Again, this is why I tell people, don't fuck around with black magic. With all her witchcraft, she got herself caught into her own split reality, into her own illusion. No, she's not buying into the illusion that the king is buying into. She's buying into the other illusion. She's buying into the illusion, though. Like I said, there's a secret third reality that's actually the reality. And the actual reality is that this split in the time-space continuum was itself an illusion that only existed until destiny had met itself. The main character completing their destiny. Right? I kind of explained this in my reading about The Hobbit, where the Lord of the Rings reading that I did, that was like that, where like all of these things were perceived, like Sauron believed that he was in control, and so did pretty much everybody else, because he was the one maintaining the darkness and he could see into everything. And there was this concept that he was truly in control, but in reality, all it took was a measly little hobbit and his nephew to overthrow the entire kingdom of darkness, you know? And like at the very end, Frodo just goes back to living in a hobbit hole and just living his life out, happy with kids and shit. Like, that's what was supposed to happen anyways. But everything got all fucked up and scary and crazy when the queen decided that she was going to do something different. And really, that wasn't even happening. That's all just part of the illusion too. Because the concept that there is a split in the space-time continuum, which there is, for as much as there is to some degree, but there isn't. I mean, it's the same thing as this boy picking up this book and reading it. So there becomes this split in reality, because there's a split in the perception of reality. But in the actual reality, there's still just the one. And the one is that the destiny was that this boy would find this book, read this book, and that it would change him for the rest of all eternity. That was his destiny, was to be changed by this book and by this story. As soon as he closes the book, all of the people that are in the book that are relying on him to complete the story, that's it. They're done. You can pick up and read it again. Start the story all over. It's the never-ending story. But it continues on even after he's closed the book through him, right? So this is part of the illusion that we're still in, that we're still talking about. Now again, the book's already explained itself thoroughly and keeps doing so. And at this point, as we near the end, we're able to start to see that end. We're able to start to understand how it's all come together. Not only are we seeing the end, we're remembering the beginning. And we're remembering, I mean, that's why these two cards look like each other, the beginning and the end. Like, as we get to this end, it reminds us of the beginning. They reflect each other. This gets so cool. Okay. So the cursed queen, she cursed herself. She didn't realize it because she's just cursing. She's cursing somebody else. She doesn't realize that by cursing, you're cursing yourself, right? You know, I mean, you kill a murderer, you yourself are a murderer, right? Same sort of concept. But she doesn't realize that yet. She thinks herself so great. And she thinks that she's won when she not only builds the king up into the emperor position, but then has him in the reverse. She kills him. She claims his kingdom. She's the queen. That's her destiny, right? That's her destiny. That's the destiny that she's been focused on this whole time, which is why she's missing this destiny. She doesn't see what's happening. She doesn't see that she's about to be dethroned herself. Okay? Because she's looking at her own... She didn't go through the ego death that the main character did. She wasn't part of that. She was not part of that. So she didn't see it. This whole time she's been, you know, these cards are part of the second timeline. The first set that we had, that were all in the upright, these are her timeline. This is what she's been focusing on, is these cards. She does not even recognize what is happening in this timeline. And so she doesn't recognize that all these things are on their head, that all of these things are in the reverse. And because they're in the reverse, so wild. I just love how my guides do these things. Like I said, they're so much smarter than me. It's so much cooler than me. The way they bring this all together. Because it's in the reverse. Like, when you when the book closes, they fold in on top of each other and everything finally comes to a head, right? Everything finally balances out. So to those in the book, there's this fear of like, oh no, the book is closing. Oh no, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end. All the characters are like scared because they just exist in the book. The second you close the book, they cease to exist. Right? But no. No, because the person reading the book carries them with them past the point of closing the book. The story becomes part of theirs forever. They're changed forever having read this book. So they live on that way. But remember, the entire plot of this book is that the reader of this book is also the writer of it. All of the characters in this book are just figments of the imagination of the author. They're just reflections of the author. Right? They're illusions themselves that way. They never did truly exist. They only existed for the author to be able to script this book so that they could know themselves. I only exist so that I can remind you of who you are, so you can look at me and see yourself. We only exist so that the universe can experience itself through this incredible story, this eternal, never-ending story that gets carried on and told in all of these different beautiful ways and experienced and expressed through all of these different beautiful ways. Like I said, there's nothing terrifying about this card. It is literally called the Lord of Despair and Cruelty. There's nothing scary about that. It's essential, but it's just, it's if you did watch The Neverending Story as a child, it probably was terrifying to you. It was terrifying to me as an adult watching it for the first time. But it's not truly a scary movie. Even scary movies aren't truly scary. They're entertainment. It's all just entertainment. You know, that's like the beautiful thing about it. That's why I've been given to entertainment as a career multiple times, and in multiple ways, because it's an essential aspect of existence. What would be the point of existence, of experiencing existence, if it weren't for entertainment? The experience of existence is itself entertainment. It's being entertained. Right? So as we move into the end, there's this fear of the end, but it isn't the end. This shit eats you and spits you back out. It's just a tunnel that you go through in order to get to the other side. Yeah, you get digested. You get transformed. But the universe is purifying itself through us. It is going through this process. And it does defeat the evil. It does defeat the monster. It does defeat the fear. All of those things are defeated so that in the end, when you go through this alchemization process, and we get shit back out at the end of all of it, then that shit can be alchemized, and it isn't toxic, and it isn't scary, and it isn't wasteful. Waste no longer is waste. It becomes resource. I have a song that I wrote where I say, how does it go? It's hard for me to think of it unless I'm actually singing the song. To consume sustenance and it corrupts. Well, then consume corruption and turn it to sustenance. Because you should never have to settle. So divorce from your divorce. Because it's been dead for quite some time now, so you can stop beating that horse. And that's all just a metaphor, you know. But it's true. We consume sustenance and then create waste products, right? It corrupts. Good food turns to shit when it goes through us. But part of the alchemization process and the entire importance of this story is so that you can be so pure that your shit is gold. It's gold. I've also had a saying where You know, if somebody gifts you a pile of shit, it doesn't matter what they intended it for, because what it matters is how you use it. Because a gift of shit can be used as manure in a garden. And so if you are ingenuitive and creative, and if instead of eating of the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, you only eat of the fruit of the trees of goodness and love and joy and pleasure and excitement and engagement and community, if you're only eating of the good fruit, of the goodness of reality, if you choose to only receive good, all things are good to those that love good, to those that honor good, to those that worship good, to those that hold good above all things are good. So there ain't nothing to fear. It all just comes back on itself. I mean, this is such a beautiful image. Like, this is literally just itself on top of itself. You know, it's not, there's nothing to be afraid of. We've already been there before. I said this in another video, and I was talking to my roommate about it a while back, about, like, you know, we had this period of time where we were all fighting each other to try to get to the front of the train, and a whole bunch of people that were willing to fight and stamp over everybody else made it onto the train. And then we watched the train leave the station, and we're watching the ass end of it like, fuck, we missed the train. But the train comes back to the station, and when it comes back, it comes head on, and we see it in a way that we've never seen it before. Now, we're not looking at the ass end of it, we're looking at the face of it, and it's coming right at us. It can be intimidating, but when we know that we're in the right place and at the right time, then we don't have to fear when that train is coming. We can know that the train comes back to the station, it comes at 3 o'clock, and we're here. We're here when it comes, and it is there for us because we're the ones left, and everybody else has already gotten their ride, and it's our ride now. We're the ones next in line. Right? So that's the importance of patience. That's the importance of knowing yourself. You have a ticket. You've been given a golden ticket. But it's up to you to read it and to trust it. Had Charlie read the golden ticket but not followed the rules on it, he wouldn't have ever gotten to the factory. And had he not gotten to the factory, or not followed the rules the way that he did then, and not followed things the exact way that he did, he wouldn't have ended up receiving the entire factory, right? Now, granted, that movie is terrifying. It's probably the scariest thing I've mentioned this entire time. But they're all of these movies, the same thing as The Matrix, the same thing as all of them are depictive of the same story. They're all telling us the same story. Your life is that same story. It's all a reflection of the same thing. So we get to the end of the book, right? We turn to the last page, and what do we see? Well, okay, this is the last page, right? So this is the one side, and then it has a back side. On this side, it's a black mirror. Like I said, people are terrified. The show, Black Mirror, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. There's a lot of fear to be had, but the thing is that we know now. We're the main character. We have learned how to look into this mirror. We already have been through this process. So we can know if we really went through that process, if we really learned from this book, if we really experienced these things and take them with us, we can know when we look into that scrying mirror that when our faces change and when we start to see all these other beings, that's still us. And we can see ourselves in that through all of it. We will see through ourselves directly right back into ourselves. Right? And so that's like the beauty of it too, because then we turn to the final page and it's just the regular mirror. And now we get to see ourselves again. But we see ourselves having had looked through ourselves, having seen everything on the other side, having seen everyone that we're related to and a whole bunch of people that we aren't, only to find that we are. Because it's still just us. It's just us. staring right back at ourselves. You know? Then we close the book, right? And when we close the book, we have, it looks like this. Here's the book. Here's the front. Here's the back. Okay. The front of the book. Okay, let me put it like this. The front of the book. Aridity. I mentioned this card a couple readings ago when I first got these oracle cards. The first time I shuffled them, I happened to see this card. I did not see the lizard on it. I didn't see this side of the card. I saw it like this. I saw that it said aridity, and I saw that it had a cacti. I already saw that. That was the first card I saw in this oracle. And like I said, out of all the cards that I have right now, this card is reflective of me. This deck, rather, is reflective of me. And this was the first card I saw. Aridity. Which means dry. Dryness. It's a desert. Okay, so this is a foreshadowing of nothingness. It's as if there's an entire book. So wild. There's this thick ass book, this wild book, this book that you've heard so much about. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy saying, don't panic on the front. And the entire book is about just the end of existence, right? But it's also about the power of the individual. The front cover of this book says nothing. It says nothing. I mean, but look in this picture. There's so much life and beauty here. Like I said, the concept of nothing is already denoting something. We might have a negative concept initially of nothing, right? You know, it's nothingness. Everything's just a void. Nothing matters. But like, nothing matters. Hell yeah, we can do whatever we want. You know? There's cactus here. That's sustenance. There's flowers here. It's beautiful. There's actual life here in this dryness, in this nothingness. I also have a song where at the end it says, we may be nothing, but nothing lasts forever. That's the entire cover of this book. And so we go through this entire book. All 4 of these past reads. This whole series. We find ourselves in it. We find ourselves through it. We close the book. And it's the Mystic Cross. You can't see it. It looks like a left hand, I think, to you. I think this looks like a left hand, but it's actually the right hand holding the pendulum. And I do have the X in my palm, just like this here. Saturn, the god of death, in transition, covering the moon a bit. Covering the moon a bit. The moon is rising up behind it, but you know, the moon, like our intuition, our emotions. I'm noticing as I'm saying this that my earring is like right above this moon. We're holding a pendulum. There's a waterfall in the background. We're holding this pendulum, which is like, I mean, those who can read them, they have significance, but the significance of them, even when you can read a pendulum, is still chance. Even if you believe that there's another force that's moving it, in order to read it properly, you're still going off of chance. The mystic cross. It's still just fully giving me like this energy of the singularity and how, and I explained this in another video, but the singularity works where like the second I say this one very tiny, very, very specific thing is something. It's something. We discovered it. We found it. And it's this one singular thing. I am simultaneously defining everything that is not that one singular thing. There's a song that I know by the Front Bottoms called Wolfman. And at the end of it, it says, nothing matters, the importance of nothing. 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 Every time you say it, you are referring to something different, to something separate from itself. We're talking about nothing, and we're talking about so many things. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and saw that it was good. And then God said to themselves, let us create man in our image. And both male and female, they created them. I am God. I am also the creation of God. I am creator and I am creation. I am you. You are me. You are God. You are master. You are sage. You are savior. You are saved. All things work together for good to those who love good. All things are connected. What does my song say? What makes life what it is what it isn't, which isn't death, it's non-existence. Life as we know it is simplistic. It's merely the essence of a universally relative consciousness that exists within any given definitive form. And love is to look at something without it needing to be seen. It's not giving, it's not taking, it's just letting things be. And the damage an enemy can cause on me is merely a matter of the flesh. The real pain is in the ignorance that makes their love act like hate. Forgetting that pain was gain, my self-perception was blurry. But then I remembered, over time, the pain, over time, has taught me Kinzakuri. Kinzakuri, the art of filling cracks with gold. I always had this concept of myself of being broken because of all of the abuse and all of the trauma and all of the mental illness that came with it. And I used to say, and I said to my own mom, and I've said it before, that I felt like a precious lamp, like a Tiffany lamp, like something of extreme value innately, just because my creator is that valuable and that they created me. And I was perfect, but then I was broken. And maybe it was on accident or maybe it was on purpose. That didn't really matter. What mattered is that I'd been shattered and that you could piece me back together, but I would never be of the same value. I would never be the same again. You wouldn't be able to sell me after gluing me back together. Even if you could make it look like I hadn't fully been cracked, I would never be the same again. The whole value of a Tiffany lamp is how perfectly it's crafted. So if I'd been absolutely broken to pieces, even just once, even if just a part of me had been chipped off, I no longer have that same value. It's like driving a car off the car lot, right? And I felt like I'd been broken time and time and time again, to where it felt, and it truly did. By 24, not even, by 21, I truly believed that the best option for me was just throw me back in the fire so that I can be crafted into something new, because I'm just pieces of clay with no potter. But that wasn't true. I felt like I didn't have a potter. I felt like there was no God. I felt like I had no family. I felt like I had no partner. After I went through my divorce, I felt like there was nothing. But in reality, I had me. I always had me. I always had me. And I didn't realize that I was the one allowing for those things. Once I did, I started to beat myself up about it. And then I learned that it was within my power to overcome those things as well. That I was the master potter. I was the master painter. I was the master of my own destiny. And that it was my choice to receive those things and to make the most of those things or not. I did go through the refining fire many times. Many, many, many times. But the thing about gold, that's another part of that song that I have. You can set this fox on fire, but I'm made of gold, not carbon, so I'll thank you for the purification. Gold only purifies itself under extreme heat and pressure. You can take simple clay and craft it into a simple pot. And you can cover it with a special glaze and have something beautiful and valuable and useful. And you can smash that pot to the point that it cannot put itself back together again. And you can take those pieces and you can craft them using super glue back up into some reasonable bowl shape and probably get some more use out of it. It's true. Potentially, depending on how you're using it, what you're using it for. But if it gets too hot or too wet or too dry, it very well may crumble. The same of our emotional state and ourselves within our emotional state. If we build ourselves back up with the wrong tools or the wrong resources, when we're under pressure, we'll find ourselves triggered and potentially breaking down again. But if we build ourselves back up with something even better, I didn't just build myself back up the way my ancestors always had, if they even did. I didn't use what was just being given. I alchemized what was being given and turned it to gold so that I had something better to craft myself out of for the future. So that when I was put through that pressure, that inevitable pressure, I wouldn't give the way that I always had. I wouldn't give in. I wouldn't break down. I would be strengthened. It's a process. The first time we go through it, we find it quite toxic. Choking on the fumes of our own shit, right? But keep with it. Go through that process. And you find in the end that even the Lord of despair and cruelty has nothing on you. You're the Lord of valor. You started this entire story. You need nothing. And you can create anything with alchemy. The mystic cross, the capacity to be able to intersect two energies and pull from them a singular truth. That is the nature of alchemy. It's what I do. And it has served me so incredibly well. And I want the same for you. I want the same for everyone. Because this is just the first fucking level, too. Like, that's what's so crazy and exciting about these things to me. It's because, like, to some people, it's like, I mean, it's so empowering, and it is. And I want that for people. But it's like, once everybody reaches this level, and we can all, like, once we can all look around and be like, oh man, we made it. Like, here we are. Like, this is just the beginning. I'm just a blueprint. There's a whole story to come after this. Stories and stories and series and series. It's a never-ending story. But you have to start it for it to never end. You know? It's already started. It's already happening through you. Whether you want it to or not. The apocalypse is upon us. In the beginning, there was nothing. And in the end, there is only opportunity. Thanks for sticking this out with me. I hope that you really enjoyed this. This was incredible for me. I am excited to see you in the next videos. Bless you. I love you. And I will see you soon.